Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
We thank the Most High Yahuwah for allowing us to come out here today, to come together and celebrate and just commune with one another on another set apart Shabbat. And at this time, we are going to get ready to start our service, and we're going to have the blowing of the shofar, 7 times by our Chief Elder Zazakan Aliyahu. And immediately after that, we're going to have our brother Aki Slomo to come and pray for us, pray us in. So at this time, we are going to turn the face to east, and as we look towards Jerusalem, Zazakan Aliyahu is going to blow the shofar, and then afterward, we're going to have our prayer. Bra Aki Shlomo. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom once again, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Hallelujah. All righty then. Today's lesson, we are going to be discussing a very controversial topic within all communities, the Hebrew communities, the Christian communities, as far as who in a particular chapter in Scripture we're going to begin to study. And that question is, who is the suffering servant of Isaiah or Yashra'al, the 53rd chapter? So what we're going to do today, we're only going to read, Isaiah, the 53rd chapter, but we're not going to just get off into it yet. Because I think the mistake most people make when dealing with Isaiah the 53rd chapter, there are some other things and other readings you need to understand in order to see what's going on, what's taking place in Isaiah 53. And matter of fact, you really need to read all of Isaiah, not just the 53rd chapter, in order to gain understanding of what's going on, because when you read Isaiah in its wholeness, what you will find out is it speaks of 2 servants. It speaks of Israel as a nation as being the servant of Yahuwah, and at the same time it speaks of a specific and particular individual being a servant as well. So what we are going to do is we're going to start off, we're going to read Isaiah the 53rd chapter, but we're not going to get into it today. This is just an introduction of some things we would need to cover in order to get a thorough understanding of what's going on in Isaiah. And then, when we get into it, we'll find out who this suffering servant is. So first, we're going to turn to Isaiah 53 and we're going to read it. And we're going to pay attention to certain words within that chapter, and you can just highlight those words or underline them or write them down. Because we will come back to those words as we get into the actual series, because this is going to take probably about 4 lessons. I know you might be thinking, how can that take that many lessons? But it's so much you're going to have to understand and know what's going on here. Okay, then we're going to ask our sergeant Can, if he would, to start us off from Yashra'al or Isaiah, the 53rd chapter, beginning at the 1st verse. And we're going to read the chapter in its entirety. It's only about maybe 13 verses or so, but we're going to read it.
Yashra'al or Isaiah 53 verse 1. Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of Yahweh revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form, nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we shall desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief. And we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs, and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of Elohim, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and Yahweh hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter.
Stop right there. Read that again.
He was oppressed. Isaiah 53 verse 7. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter.
He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter. The title of today's lesson is The Lamb. That's very important right there. We need to get an understanding of that right there. Continue reading on.
And as a sheep before her shears is dumb, so he openeth not his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. And he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased Yahweh to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of Yahweh shall prosper in his hand. He shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant shall justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressions.
Okay. So let's go back up to Isaiah 53, 5. It said, he was wounded for our what? transgressions, note or underline. He was bruised for our what? Iniquities. Highlight or underline. And the chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are what? Healed. It said, all we like sheep have gone astray, and what? Turned everyone to his own way. It said, and the sovereign has laid, or Yahuwah has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Underline. And Yahuwah hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. Make sure you highlight that right there. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. It said he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Underline that right there. Matter of fact, go, so as I can get Leviticus 5 and 1 for me. Because everyone knows the condition the nation of Yashra'al was in when Hamashiach came on the scene. That nation had become a wicked people. And you notice because they were in captivity, had they been living righteous, wrong would not have been ruling over them. You got it on? Go ahead.
Leviticus 5 verse 1.
Highlight this as well.
And if a soul sin, let's see how this soul sinned. And hear the voice of swearing, and is a witness.
And is a what?
A witness.
A witness.
Whether he has seen
this act of sin,
or known of it,
or known of this act of sin,
if he do not utter it,
if he do not what?
Utter it.
If he do not utter it,
then he shall bear his iniquity.
Then he shall what? Bear his iniquity. Okay, because you're going to often hear that another man can't die for another sin. But the word begs to differ. Or you hear another man can't be responsible for another man's sin. We know common sense will tell you that's a lie. That's the whole reason we're sitting up over here in captivity. We're paying off a sin debt that was left by who? Our forefathers. Appreciate that, all. And so, going back over to Yashra'al, Isaiah 53. So he was taken from prison, 53 and 8, I'm sorry. He was taken from prison and from judgment. And who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off. Underline this. He was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. For the transgression of my people, highlight that, was he stricken. Highlight or underline stricken. And he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Highlight that. Neither was any deceit in his mouth. Verse 10. Yet it pleased Yahuwah to what? Bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul, underline this, when thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin. When thou shalt make his soul what? An offering for sin. Okay, verse 11. He shall see what? Of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Highlight that. That's verse 11. Is it therefore will I divide a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death. Poured out his soul unto death. I like that. And he was numbered with the transgressors. I like that. And he bare the sin of many. I like that. And made intercession for the transgressors. I like that. So now, we see this particular individual, or this lamb, taking on the role and responsibility for a collective. You have an individual who is suffering for a collective. Now, let's go back and look at some things. I just want to read that and point out some things. Now, we probably want to get back into that today. But let's go over to the book of, let's go to Bereshit, or Genesis, the 3rd chapter. Because the name of this lesson today is what? The Lamb. Genesis, the 3rd chapter. And we're going to ask our Zarzakan, Chief Elder, if he would start reading that verse 1. We're going to read this chapter in its entirety.
Bereshit, or Genesis 3 verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, have Elohim said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for Elohim doth know that in that day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as Elohim's, knowing good and evil.
Okay, stop right there. So, where is all of this taking place?
In the garden.
In the garden of Eden, or Adam. So, ask yourself, because a lot of times, we read about Eden and we talk about Eden. Has anyone ever questioned or asked why this particular location? Why was Adam, or Adam, why was he given this particular portion of land to reside in? Have you ever asked yourself, is there a connection between Adam, or Eden, and Jerusalem? Its strategic location and the strategic location of Jerusalem? Could there be a connection? Is there a connection?
I would say the connection would be that in Jerusalem it says where Yahuwah placed his name.
Mm-hmm. He placed his name in Jerusalem, which is key.
You're saying Eden, that Jerusalem is Eden?
I didn't say that.
You said.
I said, is there a connection?
Is it possible?
Right.
Is it
You
possible?
mean in Eden?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was under the assumption that Eden was in a different place.
So if we look at where
let me tell you why. Because it said that we were forbidden to go back into
right,
Eden.
right, we're forbidden.
Adam was.
Right.
So that's way before, by the time you get down to the children of Israel.
Mm-hmm. So what we'll do, as we progress through this lesson, we will look at Eden, and we'll look at Jerusalem, or the New Jerusalem, or the kingdom, its location, and see the connection between the two. Because Adam and Eve were not just exited out of the garden, they were exited out of the garden or Eden in a certain direction. And that gate was guarded with the malachim and the flaming sword. So if you know which way they went out and in which direction Yashra'al or Jerusalem sets, you begin to see the connection. And all of that's very important, because we just can't deal with Isaiah 53. We have to look at the overall picture of this land. And the reason people can't understand what's going on in Isaiah 53, because they do not understand the Lamb and what his purpose is and what he's fulfilling. Isaiah 53 is bigger than Israel. It has to go back to Adonai Eden. But let's continue reading on. Azar.
Genesis 3 verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired, to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. And they heard the voice of Yahuwah Elohim walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah Elohim amongst the trees of the garden. And Yahuwah Elohim called unto Adam and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told you that you was naked? Has you eaten of the tree whereof I commanded you that you should not eat, that you shouldn't not eat? And the man said, The woman whom you gave us to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. And Yahuwah Elohim said unto the woman, What is this that you hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. And Yahuwah Elohim said unto the serpent, Because you hast done this, you are cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life.
So what happened here? Okay, they were cursed. So you see the responsibility that Yahuwah has given man. Man passes the blame, or puts the blame on who? The woman. The woman puts the blame on who? The serpent. So who's the guilty party? All of them. Okay. So we're seeing the guilt of individuals, nobody taking ownership for what they've done, but they're passing the blame off to the next one. The husband to the woman, the man to the woman to the serpent, or the deceiver. Okay, now let's continue reading. Because we're going to see something else come into play here. Something or somebody who didn't have anything to do with that whole situation.
Genesis 3 verse 15. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. It shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. And then to Adam he said, because you hast hearkened unto the voice of your wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake, in sorrow shall you eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face, shall you eat bread.
Stop right there. Go back and highlight. Thorns and thistles it shall bring unto you. Go ahead.
Genesis 3 verse 18. Once again. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face shall you eat bread, till you return unto the ground. For out of it was you taken, for dust you are, and until dust shall you return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Unto Adam also, and to his wife, did Yahuwah Elohim make coats of skins.
Stop right there. Unto Adam or Adam also, unto his Isha wife, did Yahuwah Elohim make coats of skins and clothe them. What were they clothed in at first? Yes, it was. They took fig leaves to clothe themselves. Why did they clothe themselves? To hide their shame or what? Guilt or iniquity. Guilt, sin, iniquity. But you can't hide that, or you can't cover up what? Sin with fig leaves. It takes something else to cover that. Something has to die, because what's this substance that has to be taken to cover sin? Blood. So, where would Yahuwah have gotten the coats of skin?
A lamb. That he killed.
A lamb. So, you have your first what?
First sacrifice.
Sacrifice or atoning or atonement to take place where?
In the Garden of Eden.
In the Garden of Eden. You're taking the what? The blood of an innocent to cover the sins of a guilty. Okay, let's keep reading on.
Genesis 3 verse 21. Unto Adam also and to his wife did Yahuwah Elohim make coats of skins and clothed them. And Yahuwah Elohim said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life, and eat and live forever. Therefore, Yahuwah Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way, to keep the way of the tree of life.
Okay, read 23 again.
Genesis 3 verse 23. Therefore Yahuwah Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden.
Sent him forth from the Garden of Eden.
to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the garden.
He placed at the what?
At the east of the garden.
East of the garden. Why the east of the garden?
In Jerusalem, face the east.
Okay, that's very good. If he placed a cherubim with a flaming sword at the east of the garden, what direction do you think Adam and Kawa were exiting out of the garden?
The east.
Out of the east. So if he put a what?
Flaming sword.
Cherubim that was a flaming sword to guard the east of the garden. If Jerusalem sits where?
The east.
In the east. Could Jerusalem and the set apart tabernacle be strategically placed and located?
Next to each other?
Not next to each other.
Well,
Opposite, so you can see.
Opposite. Could they be strategically facing each other?
Yes.
And when you enter the set apart places, what's in there?
Say that again.
When you enter the set apart places, what's inside of it?
Temple.
The Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant. What's on top of the Ark of the Covenant?
Cherubim.
More so than cherubim. The mercy seat. What's on the mercy seat?
What's that? What's the mercy seat?
Where the blood of the atonement is sprinkled by the high priest.
Okay.
And only who can enter this place?
High priest.
High priest.
The high priest. And he has to do what when he enters?
He has to
Take the blood
purify himself.
other when he enters. Because he has to be entered, not unprepared.
After it.
He has to take the blood of the atonement or the atoning animal, and he has to what? Sprinkle it on the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. But what's on that mercy seat? 2 cherubim? Y'all don't see that?
No.
But you will a little later. That's what I said. Always think when you're reading about stuff, okay, he exits them out. He put a cherub, which is single, a cherub with a flaming sword, whose head moves in all directions, to guard the eastern entrance. You have to know that particular location because it's being spoken of. It's very important. It is not just for that right there at that particular time.
I'm sorry, can we say that again? Can you say that again? You said, okay, the Adam and Eve left out of the east.
No, you're going to read that. We're not just going to say it. Let's go back to Barry.
You got a question.
Oh, okay.
I got two. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
when we leave, when Adam and Eve had to leave the Garden of Eden and they moved east, and Jerusalem is facing the Garden of Eden, is that a reminder of the sin that they were kicked out of the garden? So that's why they have to see it?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay. So
But-
we're probably gonna talk more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're going to go. That's why I said this lesson is going. It's not just something I can just teach Isaiah 53 in a week. It has to be a series because there's so much understanding. Because you probably just to see just from reading this that there's a lot to cover before you get there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand why.
So I have a second question.
Okay.
Going to Genesis, when you said 3 and 22, when it says the man is become as one of us, who is the man became? Like an angel? Who is he referenced that he became one of us? Who is us?
Okay. The us would be as in what? Elohim.
Okay. That's all I'm
Because he now knows what?
saying. Good and evil.
He has the knowledge of what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's evil. So now he's in a state where man was created innocent. Man should never have, Adam, we left where Adam fell from, there was no need for him to know right or wrong because he was all pure, just like his creator. You know what I'm saying? But now that he has that knowledge, because Most High told you he did what? He created what? Good. And he created evil. So now man has left a state of innocence.
Mhm.
Now he's come out of something where he has what now? A conscience. Now he can decide right from wrong. He can make a choice to do what?
To choose something good.
To do right, wrong, good, or evil.
Right.
But this is the importance of starting back here, because we're going to see the purpose and the importance that Yashra'al, Hamashiach, his role that he played. And this is why I always say, a lot of times we get so caught up in the letter of the law, it causes us to look over and look past what Hamashiach, Yahushua really did for us, and know how imperative it is that we understand what he came to do and what he did. He did something no man could do. But when we begin to finish looking at this, we'll have a better understanding. You will have to see that he did everything. He's our all in all. You can't get around him. And the Father doesn't even allow you to go around him. In order to get to the Father, he makes you go through his Son. He didn't let him come and pay that big of a price and let you just reject him or overlook him and neglect him. So
can we talk about that again? You said he was facing it when they left.
Yeah, that's what we're fixing to read.
Okay.
That was 3 and 24. Bereshit, the 3rd chapter, and the 24th verse. Go ahead, though.
Let me read 23 again.
Okay.
Bereshit, or Genesis 3, verse 23. Therefore Yahuwah Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life.
East is very important. That's why when we pray, we face what? Jerusalem, we look towards the east. And as we begin to look at some other things, we go into the lesson, we will look at Israel and how they were camped, even in the wilderness, in which way they left out of the wilderness, entered into their land. We'll look at the strategic location of Jerusalem, or Yerushalayim, or Jerusalem, and where it sits, and what's it facing. But that's probably about 2 lessons from this one. We'll get into all of that.
So when you were saying that when the priest goes into the set apart place, and he has to sprinkle blood on the mercy seat, is it a particular area mercy or just on the mercy seat, and then on top of the mercy seat is the 2 cherubims? Is there a significant?
Yeah, he sprinkles it on the mercy seat.
Okay, you still didn't touch on it. You read this again.
Well, I purposely not touched on it.
No, but you had said something something already. You had said that when Jerusalem, you said in order to understand the relationship between the Garden of Eden and Jerusalem, he said that they came out of Jerusalem,
Out of
Eden through the east.
Through the east.
Okay, so what is the relationship? Is what I'm trying.
That's
to
my point. I said I purposely not touched on it because that's a part of my lesson.
Because you touched on it and then I missed it in.
Right, I touched on the part about them exiting from the east out of Eden.
Right.
Because we were reading that.
Okay.
But I was saying it's important. I said, could there be a connection with the geographical, strategic location of Eden and Jerusalem?
But you haven't covered that yet.
And I plan not to cover that yet.
Okay.
That's why I keep telling you.
I thought I missed something.
No, you didn't miss that.
Okay.
Mr. Inquisitive. Okay. Let's go to let's go to,
So, okay, let's go back to what I was asking. So the point for you bringing up the priest going to host was what reason?
oh, my point for bringing that up is because you remember I said that you had an innocent party that didn't have anything to do with what happened to Adam and Eve and that whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
Who was that innocent party when we read it? It was the Lamb. And his blood was done what?
Shed so they could get clothing to clothe themselves
Yeah,
and to remission the sin that they did.
right. His blood was shed. It wasn't about the clothing.
Right, it was because they needed to shed blood.
Right, it was about the blood.
The blood for the sin.
It never had anything to do with the blood because the clothing, it was all about the blood. So when we look at that, you see that the blood of an innocent has been shed and taken to cover the sins and iniquity and shame of a guilty. So when there's an atonement and this blood is taken from the lamb, what do the high priest do with it? They take the blood and they enter into the set apart places. And they have to do what? Sprinkle that blood upon the mercy seat. But why are they sprinkling that blood upon the mercy seat? Because they are atoning for the whole entirety of the nation of Yashra'al. This blood is coming from what?
From lamb.
But not only a lamb, but what? What we would call a sin offering or a guilt offering. And that's why later on we're going to read and understand, get some understanding about the sin offering, guilt offering again, and we're going to go into the purpose of what they call a scapegoat. And this is why Hamashiach Yahushua, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, when after his crucifixion or sacrifice, somebody tried to do what? Touch him. And what did he say?
Don't touch me yet because you have not sinned.
He said, don't touch me if I have yet not ascended what? To the Father. Why was he going to ascend to the Father? What was the purpose of him ascending to the Father? So, when Hamashiach, as soon as his blood was shed, what happened? Y'all have been in church long enough to know that.
The atonement of sin, it basically covered all the sin, right?
So, when his blood was shed, what physically happened?
He died.
Okay, let me be more specific.
The earth.
Okay, yeah, you had the earthquake and all. That was the sign of the new covenant. The earthquake and the eclipse and all. But what physically happened at the temple?
Oh, the curtain between was split between the Holy of Holies and the congregation, rest of the congregation.
Mm-hmm. It was rendered in two, or split. So for that to happen, Hamashiach, whose blood was shed, he would have now had to do what? In the heavenly realm. That same blood that was shed, he would now have had to enter into the set apart place in the Shemayim. To sprinkle that blood where? There. You're looking at Israel, but it's all going back to Adam or Eden. Because remember, there was a lamb slain what? When?
In the garden.
And before when? The foundation of the world? Y'all don't remember that?
No.
But we'll get to it. Because remember now, everything that we have on the physical level, the earthly level, it was a replica of what? Y'all think that was a temple down here, it was not one in Shemayim?
No.
Oh my goodness. Can you believe this all? Are y'all for real?
Gee, both of y'all look like I'm just disgusted.
No. That kind of threw me off. Everything down here is a pattern of what he had was there. I know y'all know that. Y'all live in the bar.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, just said it.
Yeah, so the temple and everything come off the pattern of what was in it was in Shemaim. Yes. So what takes place here, it has to take place there. Hamashiach's blood was not only for just Israel, he's doing something for the world of all of mankind, or for the whole of mankind. It does something for the nation of Yashra'al, and it does something for the descendants of Adam or Adam simultaneously. That's why the curtain was rendered. Because now by he's well, we'll get into it. I'm really gonna get into it.
Because if you're saying that is the case, then all men should be able to come into repentance and be able to
do what?
enter into the kingdom. Because if you look at it, that's what people are saying. Because of Adam's sin, it plunged all of mankind into damnation. But so when the Mashiach came, he did not just come for Yashra'al.
Yes, he did.
For all mankind.
Okay, but
That's the argument.
Okay, but the argument is not that because Scripture teaches different. Was all mankind in covenant with you?
No.
Oh, you said no, right?
Right.
Okay, then so the focus is about who?
About Yashra'al.
Yashra'al.
No, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that when you look at what he did for Adam, what is the significance of what he done for Adam's children, which is all of us? Okay, what is the significance of that? What good would the Mashiach coming to die if he hadn't if he hadn't dealt with that? You follow what I'm saying?
Okay, now say it again now.
I'm saying, what is the significance of him dying for way back in the garden? Okay, if this had to do with the garden, what is that significance of now? What do they gain from it? What do they get out of it?
The rest of the world.
The rest of the world. Why would he have to die for the whole world?
They get a chance at salvation.
But they can't get a chance at salvation if
Yes, they can.
salvation is only for Yashra'al.
Well, no, there's salvation.
But is their salvation the same as Yashra'al?
I'm sorry, Sid.
Is their salvation the same as Yashra'al?
Their salvation is to serve Israel.
Right.
That is their
That's
salvation.
we said it's the end result of it.
Right. Because you got to remember there's two things going on. When we read in Isaiah 53, it talks about redemption.
Right.
Can the other nations be redeemed?
No, because they went in the covenant and didn't break it.
But then what did he die for?
We just answered. Everybody is saying Israel. You don't want to disagree.
No, I'm not disagreeing.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to understand. I'm saying, why did he die for Yashra'al? I mean, in other words, we understand why he died for Yashra'al. We understand the covenant. We understand the covenant was broken. Okay, so I can go with that. I can get that.
Okay, let's put it this way.
Yashra'al. What I don't get is how does it affect everybody
Okay.
up until Adam and all the rest of the world?
Who is the servant of the Most High?
Yashra'al.
Yashra'al.
Right.
Who serves Yashra'al?
The other nations.
The other nations.
And that's still hard for you to get. They got to be here. The only way they can be here, there has to be something that puts them in a position where,
So you're saying the only way they can be redeemed is to serve Yashra'al.
oh, they won't be
They're
redeemed.
not redeemed, but
They can be saved.
Right.
Redemption is only for Israel.
Exactly.
Right.
Israel was purchased with something.
Israel's the only one, you're saying Israel's the only one that can be placed back in the situation where they were, let's say, like Adam.
Right.
Like Adam.
Yeah, because I mean, when we went through that with Isaiah 14,
Mm-hmm.
it broke that whole thing down about bringing the stranger to its place. You understand? Where it was talking about being joined unto us, and they shall cleave to us.
Right.
Like what Abad just said, their salvation is to serve us.
I see.
So they just like Moreh said, they can't be redeemed. Only Yashra'al can be redeemed, but the strangers is going to be joined to us.
And so if what you're saying at this point is that as far as him having to go all the way back, his blood had to go all the way back in order to even deal with us now. It would not, and so us being redeemed is not just because of the sin that we committed in the wilderness. It's also because of what we did back in the garden.
No, it is because of what we did in the wilderness, but something else took place prior to the
So
Yashra'al.
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
And that has to be dealt with because,
I see.
remember, you had a man to fall and a lamb to atone.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the covenant, you have a man to fall
Mm-hmm.
and a lamb to to what? To atone.
Mm-hmm.
We're going from lamb to lamb. That's when we get to Revelation. It talks about what? The lamb.
Mm-hmm.
You have two dispensations. One with man, Adam, or those that come from him, and one dealing with Yashra'al.
Mm-hmm.
It's two things taking place. That's why when we deal with this, that's why I have to take you all the way back to the beginning. Let's see what's going on and get some understanding before we get into Isaiah 53.
Okay.
Then you can see the bigger picture. Matter of fact, now let's go over to Genesis, the 22nd chapter.
One second. Moreh Salva said, in your point with the pattern between heaven and earth, Exodus 25:40 says, and look that thou make them after their pattern, which was showed thee in the mountain.
Exactly. Make them after the pattern showing them where?
In the mountain.
In the mountain. So where did the pattern come from?
What was that, Exodus what?
25:40.
But isn't that in the prayer? What we done in earth shall be in heaven the same, so. it
Yeah,
has to be
it's
on
even when we
earth.
pray the Father's prayer.
Right.
On earth as it is in heaven, Hashemayim. But we're gonna get it all that. I promise we're thoroughly covered. Let's look at something in Genesis 22, Bereshit 22. Yes.
Bereshit, or Genesis 22 verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that Elohim did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now your son and your only son Isaac.
Stop right there. He said, Abraham, take what? Take now your son, your only son, who?
Isaac.
Isaac. Did Abraham have more than one son?
Yes.
He did.
He sure did. Why did the Most High say, take now your son, your only son?
He was one of the son of the covenant.
He was the son of the covenant. Go ahead.
And he said, Take now your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you lovest, and get you into the land of Moreh, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains.
Stop right there. He said, take your only son. Where? Where's the place or location? Mount Moreh. And what kind of offering is it going to be? Burnt offering. Take your only son, offer him as a burnt offering. Why a burnt offering? That's the question. Why a burnt offering? So what is a burnt offering about?
Doesn't the smoke ascend?
Thank you. That's when the smoke ascends.
Exactly.
You remember what we talked about earlier? When Hamashiach said, touch me what? Don't touch me for I have what? Not yet ascended to my what? My Father.
Yeah, because when you look at the word offering, the Hebrew is Allah, which is a step or stairs as ascending.
Ascending.
Or as going up in smoke. So, yes. Hallelujah.
Is any of this kind of connecting or making any sense to y'all?
Yes.
This is, I keep telling y'all, I'm telling y'all don't know how important it is when I tell y'all to pay attention to what you're reading when it comes and relates to Hamashiach. He says a lot of things. He does a lot of things. Pay close attention to what he says and what he does. Because he's just not throwing these words out there and saying these things. They are very important and key to you understanding Scripture. When he said, touch me, I have not yet ascended to my Father. And now I'm taking you read about Abraham and his son and talking about a burnt offering. You know it couldn't have anything to do with the animal itself as far as being burned. Because that animal is burned with its innards and the dung and everything.
Hallelujah.
But it's what's coming, the results of being that animal being burned, that's ascending up to Yahuwah. Y'all remember when I said, when you read about this stuff in Leviticus, all these different type offerings and stuff, they're Hamashiach. Every time, they're him. But you can see the connection now, right? And how everything makes so much sense. Now let's continue reading.
Genesis 22 and 2, I'll read it again. And he said, take now your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you lovest, and get you into the land of Moreh.
The land of Moreh.
And offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell you of.
Stop right there. Does anybody know what Calvary is? Calvary. Anybody know what Calvary is?
What it is?
Yeah.
You know where Christ was slain. I mean, he was put on the cross.
So where's Calvary located?
In Israel, Jerusalem.
Mount Moreh.
Mount Moreh.
Now let's go back and read.
Genesis 22, you want me to read 2 again or?
Yeah, 2 again. He told Abraham, this sacrifice is to take place where? Mount Moreh. Calvary is where? Mount Moreh. Let's keep reading. Remember this was Abraham's only begotten son? Hamashiach Yahuwah is who? Yahuwah's only begotten son. Let's read. Read.
Got the wrong guitar.
I know, right? Purple gold.
Yeah. Genesis 22 and 2. And he said, take now your son, your only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get you into the land of Moreh, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell you of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which Elohim had told him.
Stop right there. So when you look at this whole picture, you have Isaac who's fixed to be sacrificed, and he's in the company of how many? 2.
Hold that.
Hamashiach is at Mount Moreh. He's in the company of who? How many?
2.
2. Okay. Let's read.
Genesis 22 verse 4. Then on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together.
Stop right there. Abraham took the what? Wood. And he did what with it?
Oh, that's deep. Yeah.
What happened with Hamashiach? Isaac carried his wood.
Yeah.
Hamashiach gonna do what? Carry his. But all of this is a lamb now. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb?
Stop right there. You remember when we read earlier in Isaiah 53? Like a lamb being what? Led to the slaughter. Abraham is leading Isaac to where? The slaughter. Hamashiach is going to be what? Led to the slaughter. First there's prison and judgment. All of it going to come back to the same place. But let's read it.
Genesis 22 verse 7. Started that.
And I ain't going to deal with the third day yet, because Abraham did what on the what day? Third day. Because that'll take us way off into something. I ain't going to go there today. Go ahead.
Genesis 22 verse 7. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, Elohim will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering.
Stop. That's a game changer right there. Let's pay attention to what he says. Go ahead.
So they went both of them together, and they came to the place which Elohim had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the Malachim, or the messenger of Yahuwah, called unto him out of Shamaim or heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said,
Stop right there. Let's go back to what Isaac asked his father something. He asked him a question about where is the what?
Genesis 22 verse 7. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?
Listen to Abraham's response. And his reply, how he replies to Isaac. Pay very close attention to what he said and read it in slow-mo.
Yes. Verse 8. And Abraham said, My son, Elohim will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering.
Stop right there. Elohim will provide himself. Elohim will provide himself a what? Lamb for what? A burnt offering. Go ahead.
So they went, both of them, together. Verse 9. And they came to the place which Elohim had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel or the messenger of Yahuwah called unto him out of Shamayim or heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not your hand upon the lad.
Lay not your hand upon the lad,
Neither do you anything unto him. For now I know that you fearest Elohim.
So the whole test was to what? Try Abraham, for Abraham to see what? If he feared Elohim. So obedience, go ahead, talk about it.
Nah, that's it. It's about, I was just getting ready to say about obedience. Go ahead, Moreh.
Right, so it was to test Abraham's obedience.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know we're obedient to, or we fear Elohim?
When we keep his commandments.
We keep his commandments, obedience.
So, did he know that, well, in verse, I lost it. Well, okay, so did he know that the Most High wasn't going to make him kill his son? Or, because, so what's the purpose of the verse that you read, the last verse that you read, or that you said over again? I have lost it.
The one about Yahuwah shall provide, because it has nothing to do with Abraham. It all has to do with all of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they say Yahuwah will what? Provide himself a land. This is very important. I want y'all to pay attention and pay close attention to everything I'm saying. This is why we'll point out Abraham and his only begotten at Mount Moreh carried his own wood, being led to his sacrifice.
Right.
So you got Yahuwah's only begotten, which is Hamashiach. You remember he carried his own wood, being led to his sacrifice. At where? Mount Moreh, at the exact same place that this took place.
Right.
That's the whole purpose of me saying that, but we're fixing to get to something right here that's very important, and it should give clarity.
Something that's kind of stuck out to me is where he said that Yahuwah will provide himself.
But we're finna get to the cream that goes on top of that. Go ahead, Al.
So it was just a shadowing of things to come.
Exactly. But go ahead.
Verse 12 again. And he said, Lay not your hand upon the lad, neither do you anything unto him. For now I know that you fearest Elohim, seeing you has not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up.
Stop right there. Abraham lifted his eyes and he did what? He did what?
He saw a ram.
He saw a ram where?
Behind him.
Behind him. That's the key to understanding what's going on here. Whenever you're reading Hebrew literature or prophecies or anything dealing with the scriptures, whenever something like this or a passage of prophecy at some point and the direction given is behind, automatically those that understand Hebrew, biblical Hebrew reading, they automatically know that points you to where? The future. It had nothing to do with then. It had everything to do with what was going to come later. That's why he said Elohim had what? Provided himself with the lamb. And so when we look, Abraham looks behind him, he sees what? He sees, but what position is his ram in?
Caught.
He caught in the thicket. Did we just read about thorns and thistles and all earlier?
Yeah.
But how is this ram caught in the thicket?
By his horn.
By the horns, where's his horns?
On his head.
On his head. What happened with Yashra'al?
He had thorns.
Did they not put a crown of thorns on his head?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to place a crown upon somebody, because what I'm fixing to say now is very key.
Okay.
How would, let's say if you was, and this was a coronation or something like that, and you're king, and you're fixing now crown your newly beloved Yashra'al bride, queen. How would you do it?
What do you mean, how would it?
How would you do it? The physical manner of how you would do it.
I would pick it up and put it on my head, very, very,
But how would you pick it up?
with both hands.
You pick it up what? Both hands, and you would do what?
Place it on my head.
You would place it on her head.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the crown of thorns being placed on Hamashiach's head, someone would have had to what?
Put it on there.
Taken their hands, placed it on his head. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, when we talk about these sin offerings and guilt offerings and such, what is the job of the high priest?
To do
Do he not have to take what? Both hands and do what? Lay them on the head of the what? Of the ram or the lamb or the goat. The guilt offering. And when he lays his hand upon the what? The head of that what? Sacrifice. He confesses what?
his sins.
The sins of the people. Y'all don't find it strange? When they took Hamashiach, what was one of the first things they did? Did they not begin to strike him and beat him and punch him in his face,
Mm-hmm.
laying their hands on his head? And what was the thing? Even though the scripture said there was no guile found in his mouth, and they could find no sin, but a confession was made. But it wasn't a confession of Hamashiach. It was confession of the guilty, because they accused him of what? They began to beat him in his face and do what? They accused him of what? Being a blasphemer. But who was actually blaspheming?
The people.
They were the guilty.
So the guilty applied the sin upon his face, and
Right, but when it came to the scapegoat, or
right,
the priest had to do what?
laid a crown on his head.
Lay his hands on his
Lay
head.
his hands on his head.
Right. He had to lay hands on his head
Mm-hmm.
and confess the sins of the people.
Right.
And so this is what you got with Yahushua. They're laying hands on his head and they're what?
Confessing.
Confessing. They were the blasphemers. Not him, because it already said no guile or anything was found in him.
Right.
So that's why it's very important to see what's going on with this lamb, see what's going on all the way from the back from the beginning. Let's go look at Abraham. Let's see what's going on with Isaac. Because these stories and stuff, they're not in there just to be in there. They're in there for a reason. And so when you get through seeing all this with Isaac, you know it's quite a few chapters before you hear the word Isaac ever come up again. And the next time you hear of Isaac, what's taking place in the scriptures? He sent his servants to find Isaac a wife. After Hamashiach sacrifice, when's the next time we'll hear from him?
After he sends, you mean after Hamashiach, after he what?
After his sacrifice?
Sacrifice.
Mhm.
After he died on the cross?
And after he went back to his father,
Well,
Go back in 13.
he goes, yeah, he appears in the,
I said, when is the next time we will hear from him?
when we will hear from him?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, when he comes back to deliver, to pick up his bride.
Right, in the marriage supper, when he comes to receive his bride. You see the pattern? After Abraham's sacrifice of the whole ordeal with Isaac, you don't hear from Isaac again. The next time you hear from him or hear his name mentioned in Scripture, his father has sent his servants to find him a wife. So there's fixing to be a marriage to take place. After Hamashiach's sacrifice and ascension, the next time we hear from him is when? At the marriage, when he comes to receive his bride. You see the same pattern? It's all about the Lamb going back to the beginning and moving all the way forward. You can't get around it. So when we get into Isaiah 53, and we're going to go cover some more stuff, some other passages, and we're going to deal with Leviticus, and we're going to look at these offerings and see the role they play and see the steps and procedures taken when these offerings are being performed. And then you will see all of this stuff, acted out and take place with the people and Hamashiach. You cannot get Isaiah 53 mixed up thinking it's Israel. Not when you go back and read. But you can't just go read Isaiah 53 and not read Isaiah 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 53. Right. There's many to come conversations, but they've been discussed. You have one individual who's been discussed as well as a servant, and you also have Israel being discussed collectively as a servant. And so this is what's taking place here. So let's go look at Yehukanan 1 and 29. Then I'm going to have one more scripture to read after that, and then we're going to cut it off.
Yehukanan or John 1 verse 29. The next day, Yehukanan or John seeth Hamashiach coming unto him, and he saith, Behold, the Lamb of Elohim, which taketh away the sin of the world.
So automatically, when he said, Behold, the Lamb of Yahuwah, which taketh away the sins of the world, you should automatically know what that is pertaining to and what particular offering that's pertaining to. Because y'all remember when we talked about what? The scapegoat? Now all of it comes back into mind? And how they place hands upon what? The goat? Confess the sins. One goat was saved and another one was sent out where? Into the wilderness. And you're going to see the same thing with Hamashiach. You know that he wasn't crucified inside of Jerusalem, but outside. But remember, when we read Isaiah 53, it said he will be cut off from the people. You remember when a leper was unclean, he had to cover himself. And if anybody got near, before they could touch him or get near, he would shout what? A cry, unclean. But where did the lepers reside? They were cut off from the people and outside. You can't go wrong with this book. It doesn't make mistakes. It is what it is, y'all. Now let's go to Yehukanan. Same chapter, but verses 48 through 51.
Yehukanan or John 1 verse 48. Nathanael saith unto him, Whence knowest you me? Hamashiach answered and said unto him, Before that Philip called you, when you was under the fig tree, I saw you. Nathanael answered and saith unto him, Rabbi, you art the son of Elohim. You art the king of Yashra'al or Israel. Yahushua HaMashiach answered and said unto him, because I said unto you, I saw you under the fig tree, believeth you? You shall see greater things than these. And he said unto him, verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter you shall see Shamaim or heaven open, and the messengers or the angels of Elohim ascending and descending upon the Son of Man.
You saw what on the thing you said? He said, you are what? He identified him as what? King of Israel. How did he know that? We act like they still didn't have access to Torah scrolls and stuff at this time. They had read. There was an oral history. It was spoken of what would happen, how he would come. Matter of fact, let's go back to that verse. Go about a couple of verses before that. Before 48. Mm-hmm. 46. Yeah, go to 45.
John 1 verse 45. Philip findeth Nathanael and saith unto him, we have found him of whom Moses in the law and the prophets did write, Yahushua HaMashiach of Nazareth, the son of Yahuseph or Joseph. Continue. 46. And Nathanael said unto him, can there any good thing come out of Nazareth? Philip said unto him, come and see. Yahushua HaMashiach saw Nathanael coming to him, and saith of him, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no God.
In whom is no what?
No God. Nathanael said unto him, whence knowest thou me? Yahushua HaMashiach answered and said unto him, before that Philip called you, when you was under the fig tree, I saw you. Nathanael answered and saith unto him, Rabbi, you art the son of Elohim. You art the king of Yashra'al or Israel. Yahushua HaMashiach answered and said unto him, because I said unto you, I saw you under the fig tree, believe it's you? You shall see greater things than these. And he said unto him, verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter you shall see Shamaim or heaven open, and the Malachims or the angels of Elohim ascending and descending upon the Son of Man.
Okay, then, so he identified him as the king of Israel. So they already knew what to expect. They were looking for the signs. And that's very important. He was talking about, where was this information he was getting?
The writings.
The writings. From the Torah and the prophets. And so when he saw him, he was able to identify him. So when HaMashiach said he comes in the volume of the book, it testifies a witness of him. Just from this little introduction, you should see how important it is and where HaMashiach fits in all of the book. There's nothing written in there that's not of him or about him. The whole entire book is. So when he said these things that we see the Levitical priesthood performing and stuff, all of this stuff was to be what? Just a schoolmaster, a tutor, or a teacher. Until Hamashiach will come in the fullness of these things. They will be the shadow, and he will be the actual image that projects this shadow. It's all about him. It's all about him. And so we're going to look at these things, and we're going to jump back and forth from Isaiah 53, read a little bit there, and we're going to jump back. Read a little, jump back, jump forward, and see how all of this come together. And with that being said, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. So at this time, we are going to...
If anyone have questions.
Open the floor for anyone who have any questions or comments or what have you.
Pertaining
To the lesson.
We got to put that out there.
Oh, yeah, that's what's amazing.
We have a whole other sermon going on there, huh?
This was amazing. I think I've never seen this explained that way. So I'm learning. I mean, the whole time I've always thought the thing with Abraham, the sacrifice that Abraham was making with the souls was about obedience, and of course about Abraham's trust in Yahuwah. But I've never heard it, or I've never tied it into a shadow picture of prophetic shadow picture of Yahushua on the cross being sacrificed. So it was interesting the way that came, when you brought that out.
Yeah, because a lot of times our perspectives come from people with a different understanding and ideology of what is written. Because like I tell you, the biggest problem with what has taken place in the world, and especially in secular institutions, or I should say secular religious institutions, how is, gone from the religious institution. And a lot of our colleges and universities are actually started by the religious institutions. Whether they be Presbyterian institutions such as Mercer, or Methodist institutions like Emory's was started by the United Methodists. You have several, a lot of the institutions of academia are founded by the religious institutions. So the ideology goes into those institutions as well, and they're filtered down and they trickle down to other lower institutions. So you have a perspective that's kind of make things all inclusive, but when you begin to read the scriptures, you begin to see that it's actually about this particular group of people and what happened to them. And so that's why we begin to go and read. We see how everything is personal with Hamashiach and the one that he loved, which being his bride, Israel. But something else takes place that goes all the way back to Eden and Adam that has to be rectified as well. See, because he has to bring all of mankind back into what we call the covenant of peace. And Israel was given a responsibility. And that responsibility was to be a light to the nations. And because they failed at doing that or ceased to do that, it causes them to fall as a nation. And now, the Israel was put in a position where the Most High even told them, the nations were wicked because of them. They should have been the light to teach them the righteousness of Elohim. So now, he has to use Israel to bring about, or bring into fruition, the original plan, which was to bring all of mankind into the light. So not only Israel could live or be a covenant relationship with the Father, but the nations could live harmoniously amongst themselves in righteousness as well.
Exactly.
Because the nations were always going to maintain and stay within their borders. That's very important, that people stay within their given borders. What happens when a person goes outside of their borders? Do y'all know why we were exiled out of the Garden of Eden?
Do I know why? Because we committed sin. Because of Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm. Did the serpent bring the Satan inside the garden, or did someone venture outside of Eden?
No,
And-
serpent came into the garden.
So Eve didn't go outside the garden.
No.
Okay then. We got a little more study to do.
What do you mean she went outside of the garden?
She went to the field.
She left outside of
The
Eden.
field was inside of the garden.
She brought something outside into the garden. But that's another lesson.
Okay, I gotta go back. and read
Yeah.
this again.
Actually, Casado did a teaching.
Yeah, Casaba, matter of fact, big brother, Moreh Casaba did a teaching on it.
Come in, I missed something.
You may not have been here then.
No, I wasn't here on the teaching. I'm saying, but I missed something when I read it.
Yeah. Because
I
we
thought
keep
all
reading.
this stuff took place inside of the garden. The tree was in the garden. The tree, in the midst of the garden was the tree of good and evil. In the midst of the garden, it said.
Mhm.
So when she went in to get it, she had to pick it from inside the garden.
Not necessarily.
Why? If it's in the midst of the garden.
So she couldn't have gone outside the garden?
No, what does the word midst of the garden mean? In the midst of the garden, what does that mean?
Okay, in the middle.
Right. So how is that going outside?
So when we get into these words, we're gonna go back to the Hebrew.
You still ain't telling me nothing, are you?
I'm because we're gonna do a lesson. I ain't gonna give you a sound bite. We get the whole understanding. She went outside and she brought something inside.
Moreh said he wants to call in and be put on speaker. He has something to share.
Oh yeah. Tell him go ahead. Yeah, matter of fact, we ain't got to do that lesson. We can just pull his up.
Yeah, I need to see that.
Who's he gonna call?
What was it called?
I think it was a series too, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It was a series.
Yeah, it was a series.
What was it called?
You know what? Why don't you, well, I guess either one of y'all so can pick it up, I guess.
He's really calling out?
I don't know the answer.
Oh, tell him we waiting on the call in.
Right.
Serious ought to be like November, December.
Shalom, shalom, Shabbat, shalom, Moreh.
Tobio.
Tobio.
Now remember, in the book of Bereshit, the 15th chapter, we see that
Appreciate that, Moreh. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, Moreh.
Yeah, so that's what's up. We're gonna cover a lot of ground because dealing with Isaiah 53 is so much in that, but it's so much more that you have to understand before you even try to tackle that to be able to see what's actually going on. But you're looking at one offering when there are several offerings taking place in the one passage. But because if you don't understand how these offerings work, and how Mashiach fulfills all of them, you will miss something, and you won't be able to understand what Isaiah 53rd chapter is talking about. Most people have never taken time to look at, go to Leviticus and look at the different types of offerings and to see what's required. And the steps and procedures of how to present them to Yahuwah and to sacrifice them. So if you don't do that, or if we don't cover that, you won't really understand Isaiah 53, but it should be self-explanatory. I mean, but you can see how people can get thrown off by it. But we're going to do that. We're going to look at that thoroughly. But like I'm saying, it's going to be a series because we can't just do it in 1, 2, or 3 lessons because there's so much to understand. You just have to, I'm hoping we can kind of shorten it to about 5 or 6. My nerves start getting bad. And I have to come out and breathe. And so hopefully we can do it in about 5 or 6 lessons. That way we can make sure we cover everything. But one thing, you know what I'm glad about? And one thing y'all are going to soon find out. This book is not that difficult. Once you get the right understanding and a certain understanding, everything brings you back full circle, right back to one thing. Because everything is tied in together to one subject matter. You can't talk about the Lamb without talking about a marriage. You can't talk about the marriage or the Lamb without talking about the nation of Yashra'al. Everything is tied into, everything is tied into the Lamb. There's not anything that we can discuss that's not tied into that. The book starts with the Lamb, it ends with the Lamb. One man falls, and the Lamb has a job to what? Cover. It also going to take the Lamb to do what? To restore a people and mankind. It takes the Lamb to do it. When we read in Revelation, it talks about what? No man was found worthy to read from that book, but that there was one who was found worthy. It was he who, what the angels were getting to sing, said he's worthy. He that was slain for what? For many of the nations, found worthy to read from the book. You can't get past the Lamb. Do y'all know that everything we read in this book, do y'all not understand everything is about what? When we get to Sinai, and they commit that sin of the golden calf, from that point, no, I take that back. Let's go back to Adam. When they sinned in the garden, everything in the book is built off of what? A sacrificial system. The entire book is built off a sacrificial system. So you got to understand the sacrifices, the animals involved. From the pigeon to the turtle dove, to the sheep, the lamb, the ram, all of them. The bulls. So if the book is based off of a sacrificial system, you have to know that system and know the importance and how it works. And I'm going to digress right there.
I don't have a question, I have more of a statement. I really appreciated this lesson, it's a really good lesson. I think it shows the correlation is just one example of the Mashiach in the Old Testament and the New Testament, because you see the correlation now. He's always been there from the beginning.
From the beginning.
To the end. So I like that you tie the Old Testament and the New Testament, and you bring it out that people see he was in the beginning and the end. So I like that breakdown, understand.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, that is awesome. This has been an awesome.
And the sad part is, this is just the
Yeah.
surface of it. Because this book is so deep. Y'all might think I'm lying. I actually read, and I guess I'm not any better than you guys. I'm not on any higher level than you guys. There's an understanding that he has given me with certain things. And a lot of it is hard for me to read without just shed. Sometimes I have to close the book because I just start crying. Because I actually see what he has done, what he's doing, what he has done. And the lengths that Yahuwah went through for the nation of Yashra'al. It's hard to read it and keep dry eyes. Because you're actually looking at it. I kid y'all not. I used to get off from work at 7 o'clock every morning. I would go get breakfast, come home about 8 o'clock a.m. I'd be out of the shower by 8:30. I started reading and studying from 8:30 a.m. Now I have to be back to work to clock in at 11 o'clock p.m. I would have read and studied, and this was almost every day for a long time, from 8:30 a.m. to like 10 o'clock p.m. I wouldn't leave the house or anything. My dad would be so mad with me. He was like, son, you got to get out of this house. You got to go do something. That's not good. You laying up here in this bed with books all over the place. I said, I am going somewhere. He just didn't know the journey I was going to take. But that's what I did because I was seeing things. He was showing me things. And when I met Chief Moreh Aliyahu, I know it was like 2 to 3 years. We talked for just about every day. He would just call me, I called him, would discuss some things, he'd go over stuff with me on the phone and just teach me stuff. And he knew I wasn't where I needed to be, but he never just came down hard on me. He always said, he said, okay, he said, I see what you're reading, how you might get that understanding. He said, let's go back and read something. He said, have you ever considered this? He said, let's read something. And I kid you not, before he could give me the answer, by him saying, let's go back and read something, I would just pause and the Most High would just give it to me right then. I'm like, man, so it was a lot of stuff. I started out, I was wrong. I thought I was right. But I was humble enough and I love Yahuwah enough because I didn't want to be over his people any kind of way. I would humble myself and go back and tell the people, hey, I made a mistake right here. I thought this what this was, but let me show you something, what I learned. And that's what I did. And then I met Big Bro Moreh. And even with that situation, I've learned so much on Moreh. You know what I'm saying? There are things that he's taught that it took what I knew already to a completely higher level. It gave me more understanding. And so I was talking about talking to someone. This congregation that I started, it actually started out of a very dear friend of mine, her dining room. And matter of fact, I'm headed to her house when we leave here, and I asked y'all to pray for her too. Her name is Anna Hudson. Miss Anna, she's in the walk, but she's on the hospice care now, so they've only given her, a short while. So that's where I was when I missed the other Shabbat. And so as soon as I leave here today, and I apologize for the Hebrew language, I promise y'all we're going to get back into that, but have to go spend time with her because the Ruach put it in my spirit and,
You going to?
so what? What about?
You want to on?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I know. So I'm going there to spend time with her because I think it was like 3 weeks ago. My wife, she always hear me talk about the speaker, Miss Anna, and John, her husband. It's Anna this, Anna that. And so the Ruach had been telling me for about 4 months, go see Anna. But let me tell you, my job has had me all over the place. I've been working, for this week I've been working, for the last couple of days, I've been working 18-hour shifts. And 2 Fridays ago, my Isha called me out of the blue. She called me, she said, how's Miss Anna doing? I said, Miss Anna, she's doing good, I think. And so we talked, she said, oh, I said, well, I said, okay, I said, she said, oh, I just want to know, she said she was on my mind. So we hung up. But it scared me so bad, I called her back. I said, why would you ask me that? She said, well, baby, she said, I don't know. She said, I'm here studying for my exam. And Miss Anna just came on was in my Ruach so heavily. And she said, I don't know why. And she said, I just wanted to call you and check on her, see how she was doing. And I knew then because I couldn't get right the rest of my day. It scared me because you had already spoke to me. Go see Anna. And every week, I'm like, I got to go see Anna. I got to go see Anna. But that phone call scared me so bad until I said, you know what? I'm putting everything on hold. I said, after Shabbat test, I'm going to go up there early and I'm going to leave. But when I got there, it's something I couldn't leave. I wanted to be here. That it was a Shabbat Moreh Kasad talk. And, I was just looking at her because it's so conflict, because she looks just like one of us, looks so healthy and so happy. But what's going on the inside is a different story, you know what I'm saying? And so I know that was Yahuwah, he was leading me to go there, so I've been trying to find time to get up there to spend time with her, and we just read the scriptures and we talk about the prophecies and all. And she was telling me, she was like, Nancy, she said, you just don't know. She said, I have watched. She said, from day one, when you first started teaching us up until now, she's like, you have growth. She said, the growth. She said, I haven't seen anything like it. She said, I have watched you grow all of these years. And she said, I'm so happy and so proud. And she just started tearing up, crying. And she said, because she said, I often laugh about how a lot of times I would be reading stuff and then I'd get off track and I'd get nervous and scared. Then I have to go up there and have a conversation with her because I said, Miss Anna, that has nothing to do with you. I said, that's about the mother folk calling themselves Jews. I said, but that doesn't have anything to do with you. And so we would have these conversations and, it's just one of the things where I will always be thankful for her because she opened up her home, and it was one of the things where on Shabbat, we would have to sneak in there to have Shabbat service and get the house cleaned up and everything before her husband get home from work. Get out of there and have it was so funny, and I would tell them, I said, we're going through all of this, but y'all are going to be surprised. I said, don't be surprised. John ended up catching a hold of this. And lo and behold, guess who's having these conversations today? John. Yep. And one of her grandsons, he read Deuteronomy 28th chapter. Read it one time. And for about 2 years now, I mean just full force with it. Crazy. But the most I say, he's I'm gonna call what? One from a family and two from a city. Two from a family and one from a city. Bring them in design. And that's what he's doing. The remnant is small, but it's going to be enough to wait to get the rest of them ready and prepared. So, I'm gonna go up there and spend time with her as soon as we get out of here. But that's all I have to say, and just want to encourage you guys, just continue to read and pray that Yahuwah continues to open up your understanding, because you have to get this, because you're going to encounter so many people who don't have this understanding. And once you see it, you probably say it's not that hard. You know what I'm saying? That's what I like about Akoti Kara Shema. Y'all see, they're a little more, what's the word I like to use? They're not as timid and shy as they used to be when it comes to answering questions. Because once you know what you know, it gives you what? That confidence. And you just say what you're going to say because you know it. And so, it's one of the things I'll say, you know, all of us are growing, and I can see growth even in you guys. And I just want to encourage you to continue just to read and get it, because you're looking at now, you're looking at your families and your loved ones. But see, you don't know what Yahuwah's doing. People look at it, you might look at it as such a small number. The remnant is small compared to the nation. But guess what? When the economy and stuff begin to crumble, and this thing really start to go southward, our people are going to be looking for answers. And guess who they're going to have to go to get them? But the Most High just preparing you for the harvest. He's preparing you for the harvest, because everything is going to come back to their remembrance. They're going to remember when you condemned Christianity, when you told them it was going to fall. It's not the right thing to follow. They're going to remember all the prophets and everything you tried to explain to them. And they're going to call your phone. They're going to knock on your door. And they're going to be ready to receive a word. That's what the Most High doing. He's preparing you. Because in the last day, who is his two witnesses? Israel and Judah. That's exactly what he's doing. You might not have any understanding of what's going on now. And a lot of times you can get discouraged. Be like, you know, is all of this worth it? I mean, you look at television, you see all these Christian churches and mega churches that's overflowing with people. But you got to remember one thing. He said broad is the way that leads to the what? Destruction. What did he tell you about this way here? It's straight in there. He said every now and again. He said, by the way, he said few that find it. And he said every now and again what? A stranger. But he's getting his people ready. He's getting his people ready, because these people are going to have a word. And it's going to have to be a word for that season. But the good thing about it, y'all already know what's happening. You're going to know where to take them, what to show them, and how to explain it to them. It's not hard to turn on your television and watch any Christian broadcast and to see like it has gone to Hades in a handbasket. And everything is going on in these institutions. You can twerk and everything in church now. Come up in here and twerk and see what happens.
You know, the thing about it is that, I was thinking about this morning, is that you can actually see it, our impact, not our Israelite, I mean the church community, you can see the impact that it's having, because when the church don't lead, then the rest of the world don't follow. And so, the church has literally, the Christian church has literally fell off this rock. And you can see that in the world, there is no impact at all in the world and what's going on in the world. People are just mean, and they're just upset and mad the church has literally gone, if we ever were there, I mean, if the church ever was there, praying and trying to show people how to live a life for Yahuwah to just entertainment. It is just
It's
entertainment.
just entertainment. I was looking at several interviews where all of these mega ministry pastors like Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, what's the guy that's over that big ministry that started with Hillsong? And they got the younger guy up in New York with, cause Justin Bieber goes in, hangs out with him a lot.
A real clean cut, young looking.
Yeah. And all of these people, when interviewed, when they were asked about homosexuality,
Mm-hmm.
none of them could call it a sin.
Right.
And all of them were going all the way around. They could not answer that question. They weren't going to answer it. But you know they could have interviewed me. I'm like, no, man, no sisters finna come up in here.
Now they looking, they're not looking for you.
Yes, it's a sin. Two men have no business in bed together.
You don't got the 501c3, so
I know, right.
Yeah, there you go.
that's what it is, man. So.
Yeah, you're not fixing to come. No, you can't be no sister here. You're not fixing to get married in here. That ain't fixing to go on. Sally and Samantha is not fixing to be together. Adam and Steve is not fixing to be together.
No.
Not up in here.
So you're saying those who even go to those ceremonies have iniquity on their hands?
Yep.
Well, yeah, matter of fact, you just read that. You read something like that. But also the Bible says for those who condone such things. So
If you don't want your feelings hurt, don't invite me to a same-sex marriage.
Same-sex marriage.
Because I'm just going to tell you what it is.
I couldn't imagine somebody inviting me to it. They're not going to do that.
And it's probably our last episode on Comcast. Let me throw out this disclaimer. Well, this will be cut out. I won't even be on that with it.
Well, I tell you, you can stop. You can well, I tell you what.
Stop.
Let's pray out.
Pray out the next one.
Okay.
But they get my point. Is homosexuality a sin? Yes.
Yes.
Can you come in as a sissy? No. That's a bull dagger? No. A lesbian, whatever you want to call it, we don't play that. It's not going on. I'm sorry.
All right. Okay, you started back.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, he did get it.
Oh, okay.
I got that last part.
Yes.
So at this time, I'm going to turn it in the hands to see if our chief elders, also can, if he have any words or remarks, anything you want to say before we dismiss out.
No, I mean, you said enough. Yeah, you said enough. you said everything I want to say.
Okay.
So we good.
Okay, so at this time, we're going to stand. And we're going to turn towards the east, looking towards Jerusalem. And we're going to have our blowing of the shofar by Zarzakan, our chief elder, Aliyahu. And then immediately following, we're going to ask Aki Zabud Yahu to pray us out. Thanks, Aki, for reminding who he is.
fit to open our hearts and our mind. We were able to receive it, we were able to internalize it, and now we're able to go forth into the rest of this week, Father, being able to understand and see that as long as we follow you, we're going to make it through this thing. We thank you for those who did attend today. We pray for those who could not make it. We ask that you would remember one of the founders of this ministry with where they had inside of her home. I can't remember her name. But we ask that you meet her where she is, Father. Meet her at the center of her needs, Father. That you lift her up, that you keep her lifted up until you either decide to heal her or bring her on home, Father. Either way it goes, I know she's going to be happy because she's full of faith. And we thank you for that. We thank you for the example that she has given us, even being that we've never met her, but just through the example that she's been living before Moreh. We thank you and we praise you, Father, for them even having a wherewithal, and you put it upon Moreh, Aliyahu's wife, to Yashra'al, to even think about her. And we thank you for her. And we ask that you remember the rest of Yashra'al, Father, that may be sick or shut in, and that you would just meet them at the level of their needs, Father. Either heal them or take them home, but we know at the end of the day, they're going to be okay. We pray that as we go forth into this week, Father, that you will order our steps, that you would show us which way to go, who to talk to, what to say to those when we get there, Father. And that we will not shy away from the calling that you have placed upon our life, which is to speak to your people, to speak to our brethren, and bring them back into the sheepfold, Father. We thank you for this awesome path that you have given us, Father. And we meet it head on with boldness, Father. We pray for those, Father, again, who could not make it, but that are not sick, and just that you free up some space for them. Thank you for Moreh being able to call in. We pray that you would give him safety, you give him peace where he is even now. When he called in, he seemed like he was so full and just so happy, Father. That's what this message has done for us. And we thank you. We look forward to the other messages to come that's going to make this an awesome series, Father. We praise your holy and right, your set apart and righteous name, and pray that you would bless Baruch each and every one of the people who are here today, Father. And that as they go forth into their week, Father, you would give them safety, traveling graces to and from everywhere they have to go. In your Son Yahuwah's name we pray. Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah.